Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to Thursday night's American Sci-Fi Classics Track Quarantine Panels. We are excited to have you here. You have made the correct choice amongst your many things you could be doing on Thursday nights. You decided to hang out with us, and that is correct. And so tonight, because the Valentimes, or as
that's a southern thing. Valentimes,
as they refer to it on Babylon 5, the Valentine's Day. That is this weekend. So we're going to talk about romance in genre things, like the movies and the TV and that kind of thing, with an almost full Brady Bunch tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We have a couple of people who, in fact, we just have one brand new guest here on the quarantine panel tonight, but we'll get to him. First of all, one internet to my left, Kevin. Welcome.
Hello to lovers everywhere. My name's Kevin. I do a podcast about skateboarding movies called Gleaming the Tube, and I am super excited to be here to talk about the great lovers of genre fiction.
And making his quarantine panel debut, although you've been on live-action Dragon Con panels in the past, you haven't been on our things. So I hope whatever you had prepared, just throw it out the window.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Burns, how are you?
Good. Thank you for having me. It's great to make my classics debut here. Hi, everybody. I'm Jeff Burns. I host a show called Super Geeked Up, where we talk zany, geeky topics, play geek-themed improv games. We do it live every Wednesday night, 11 p.m. Eastern. And last week, we just had our 300th episode, which I'm pretty proud of.
Holy mackerel. We're only on... I stopped counting, Gary, so I don't know what... But
once you've peaked, every number after that's just
right.
One more. Exactly.
Yeah, you guys already peaked. Hello, Chaz. Thank you. Chaz is actually one of our awesome viewers. He's in the chat.
Awesome, great. Yeah. Well, welcome all of our super geeked up friends, and we hope that you can come and hang out with us every Thursday. Since, as Jeff just said, his thing is on Wednesday. So what I'm saying to you is abandon your families a second night and come hang with us. And one internet south of me, Elizabeth, welcome.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. I'm some random 40-year-old with opinions who they occasionally let come and run her mouth. So
that's right.
I guess I've been my age. But I am trying to get more into the nerd sphere, as it were. A friend of mine is trying to set me up something, so we'll see how that goes. But
nice.
This is my jam. I love this topic, so I'm very glad to be here.
Awesome. And in the Alice position tonight,
that's appropriate.
In the Brady Bunch, our friend who has never been able to physically join us for Dragon Con, but we can't stop her from joining us on the quarantine panels. Deanna, how are you?
I am fine, and the reason why I'm always allowed to join these is because I have too many pictures and other pieces of evidence that, if were released to the internet, would, end you.
I will say
he's not disagreeing. He's not disagreeing.
Jessa knows of what I speak.
And one internet diagonally from Deanna, Lola, welcome.
Welcome to me. I'm Lola. And I am very excited tonight because it's been one of those days and I'm just like, woo! I am Lola Lariscy / Strickland. I have two names because I'm that special. I am a podcaster and a writer, and I live in Florida, and I'm very happy to be here because I love y'all guys, and I love Dragon Con. Been going since 2004, and I will be happy to share whatever I have to share.
And let's see, 1, 2, 3. If you go on, if this was a Connect 4 board, you would be my co-conspirator on the American Sci-Fi Classics Track, Mr. Gary Mitchell. Welcome.
Greetings, everyone, from the Atlanta Red Light District.
Jessa, he's raising money for the wedding. Don't say anything.
Mm.
Do what you
And
got to do.
one internet south of Gary Mitchell, one of our longtime quarantine panel American Sci-Fi Classics Track friends. She's been doing this so long, she's engaged to one of us. Which one?
We're not
is it?
saying who.
We're not saying which one.
Get out now,
It's
everybody.
Deanna.
That's
It's
right.
Deanna.
Jessa.
Payment or punishment? But yeah.
A little bit of both. And so, anyway, guys, thank you very much for coming. Romance in sci-fi movies and TV things. I had trouble coming up with a list. We discussed this for a second, and I had trouble because, sure, there are couples, but most of them end terribly. And so I'm gonna start.
I got ready. I'm ready.
Me too.
Let's see. Let's start number one alphabetically in the center with Deanna.
Okay.
I call foul.
Now, I am going to pick this couple first because despite their creators' recent shenanigans, I happen to think they are the best married couple in all of fiction, period. And that would be Zoe and Wash from Firefly. Yes, we have a tragic ending, but at the same time, throughout the run of that series and up until spoilers, the end of the relationship, it is the most realistic representation of what a marriage is. I have been married now for getting close to 20 years, and the way in which the two actors interacted with each other on that series was how my husband and I interact. So the scene that always comes to mind is when Jubal Early has invaded the ship, and Wash wakes up to the sound of this guy running through the ship, and he tries to wake up Zoe and is like, I think somebody's on the ship. And Zoe's trying to sleep. She's tired. And he's like, but what if this person murders us in our beds? And she says that I will say nice things at your funeral. And she goes back to sleep, So it is just at that moment, that is exactly what really happens. One person wakes up, tries to get the other one up to go look and find out what the bad, scary sound is, and the other one's not having any of it. There's so many of those little moments in that series that are just lovely and really, like, because we spend so much time in fiction looking at the build up to marriage as if marriage is the final point, and it's not the final point. And so the fact that we get this really great relationship that continues to evolve over the course of the series is lovely, and the two actors are magical together. They have great chemistry, and it just works. So Wash and Zoe would be my first nod.
Let's jump over to the our awesome commenters for just a moment. Gary, I've got a message for you, sir.
Yes.
I keep telling him to stop telling people that his running joke, but thank you so much, Charles.
Yes. It is
Bring
my
that
real
out.
name. Yes.
His real name. And
But yours
also,
is one L, right? Isn't the other Gary Mitchell 2 L's?
You
Okay.
hush. Don't bring letters into this.
They have different spelling rules in the 23rd century. It's fine.
That's right.
I'm incognito. You're gonna blow
Flexible.
my cover.
Seriously, Lola, for goodness sake. And all right, second up alphabetically, Elizabeth.
Me, hi. Okay, true love is easy when it's never tested. But if you stay together after you've been blown up, had clone drama, and are halfway across the universe, God knows where, then you're going to stay together, as we saw in the Peacekeeper Wars. So my choice is John Crichton and Aaron Soon from Farscape.
Nice.
They are amazing. The first thing that sold me on them is the fact that Ben Browder and Claudia Black have phenomenal chemistry. I mean, they are smoking. The minute I saw them in the first scene together, I was like, yep, I ship it. I'm good. And if you saw them together at DragonCon 09, like I did with Claudia immensely pregnant, they've still got it when they talk to each other. So that was the first thing.
Sweet.
And the second thing I like about John and Aaron is, in some of the sci-fi that some of us grew up on, you had male and female roles very defined. You usually had the strong, brooding, silent male who could kick butt. and you had the sensitive
You can say
in their
kick,
feelings.
Elizabeth.
And okay. The woman is intuitive. She's a learner. She's the smart one. Farscape turns that on its head. It absolutely inverts the trope, and that's the reason I love it. Is because Aaron is the one that's going out kicking butt, not wanting to talk about her feelings, and then there's the neurotic mess that is John Crichton. I mean, he's expressive. He talks about his feelings. He wants to talk about his feelings, and Aaron's like, no. So that's something you didn't get a lot of previously, in my opinion, in some of the 80s and 90s stuff that we grew up on. And they worked for me. They worked because they're each other's connection to humanity, or sentient life, whatever you want to say, since only technically one of them is human. Basically because John humanizes Aaron. And in response, Aaron shows John that he can still find love and connection even though he's not where he's supposed to be.
Oh, yeah.
And of course the writers are brilliant. The show is brilliant. It's hilarious. And what I also like about it is one of the reasons I feel the relationship between John and Aaron is so solid. Sorry, I talk with my hands a lot. Is so solid is because the actors had input. They could read the script and they could stop and they could say, this doesn't feel true to John. This doesn't feel to Aaron. I don't think this is what they would do. And the directors would listen to them to a point. So they had real input. So, and they had a realistic relationship. They fought, they argued, they goofed off. Sometimes they had awkward conversations. Okay, a lot of awkward conversations. Hi, I'm in love with your clone. That's a pretty awkward conversation. But that's why they're my pair, because even though despite the setting, they're realistic, and that's why I vote for John and Aaron. And plus, I just love them.
Next up, alphabetically again, Gary Mitchell.
All right, my first pick for the greatest couple of all time is they started out in one-panel comic strips. They moved on to a TV show and then incredible movies, and that's Gomez and Morticia Addams.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Excellent choice.
These are two people that are so obviously madly head over and heels in love with each other. They're devoted to each other. They support each other. They have a very interesting adult life, shall we say, keeping this PG-13. I just love that, and I love the way it was been pointed out that when the TV show was on the air, they were meant to be, the subversive, these are not what real people are like, the creepy, whatever. And they turned the suburban sitcom trope on its head of, the nagging wife and the put upon wife and the man-child husband. No, they're both just madly, deeply would do anything for each other. They're like Denise just says, they have a healthy relationship. They're a great support system for both each other and the kids. And they know when you have to dump hot boiling oil on the Christmas carolers on your front porch.
Always a good idea.
Yeah.
The cornerstone of any successful marriage.
Very true. Very true. Next up, alphabetically, G-H. Oh, Lord, this is getting...
You see, you're from Alabama.
I am. Jessa, I believe, is next.
I am? Wait.
Not really, but go ahead.
No, okay. Well, here's the thing. When
Jeff.
Okay,
I would say almost everybody, but legit everybody. On your first time here, I forget that you exist.
Yeah, no, and I'd like to point out to everybody that Joe's wife is a school librarian. So the fact that he can't alphabetize things, I think there will be a conversation between him and Stephanie later.
There's 100% going to be a conversation later. So,
I think his wife needs to moderate. How about that, Joe?
Joe is incapable of being moderated.
She can hold up a flashcard in the background.
So let's go. I will correct myself, and let's go to Jeff first. Welcome.
Thanks. All right, my first choice is from Star Wars. It is not perhaps what you think, even though I do think Han and Leia are an amazing couple. I chose one that maybe people will not say as much. I'm going to go back to the books, to to the Legends series and my favorite Star Wars books of all time by Timothy Zahn, Heir to the Empire series. And I'm going to go with Luke Skywalker and Mara Jade.
Nice.
That's one of my all-time favorite couples. I think they're amazing. I mean, you go from her hating him and being programmed by the Emperor to kill him to them falling in love and getting married, and they both have force powers, so I think they're very well matched. They're both kick ass on their own. They think they do it even better together. I'm just a huge fan of Mara Jade character in general, and Luke was always my favorite character from the original trilogy. And even though canon has erased that, I don't really care. That's my own canon, those stories in the Legends, and I don't really care what they're doing anymore. The sequel. So that will always be how Luke and Mara wind up together, even though it may not be true to canon anymore.
I feel like eventually Mara Jade's going to have to show up.
Mhm.
I'm wondering so, yeah.
I actually went to Timothy Zahn's panel at 2019, and he said, DragonCon, and he said he wants to do Mara Jade. He's trying to convince Disney. It just takes a long time for them to approve any new stuff. But he very much wants to bring her into the current universe.
Yeah,
like he did with Thrawn.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, heck yeah, Thrawn's already there. I mean, that's half your Mara Jade story right there.
Right, yeah.
So now, Jessa.
And I'm going to stretch our purview a little bit. I kind of went a little bit fantastical. I really thought about this, and I wanted somebody that a couple that most people were not going to think of. So yes, I went a little fantastical, and I am going with Captain Navarre and Isabeau from Lady Hawk.
Ooh. Good. Yeah.
Loyalty and devotion and just undying love. I mean, two people who forever separated just by the turning of the earth, but who, even though are given the option, I mean, most people, right, would give up, go your separate ways, spread your wings and fly, so to speak. But no, they're still going at it, and they are determined to find their happy ending, even if they have to use Master Broderick to get it.
That's great.
One of the best scenes in cinema is him riding that horse through the church at the end. That's just...
Yes, and a young Rutger Hauer and a young Michelle Pfeiffer. I mean, like...
Rutger Hauer is good in everything.
Everything.
Yep.
And legit, I just watched Blade Runner again today. Not for this panel because, ugh. But,
the other kind of couple.
Yeah. But Kevin.
Joe, you fainted towards this in your intro when you said Valentine's Day, and I have to give it up for John Sheridan and Delenn from Babylon 5.
Old school.
Especially since we lost Mira Furlan so very recently.
Yeah.
Which is very tragic. She was way too young. But what I love about that couple and what I love about watching that relationship on television is they meet each other in the first episode of season 2. They don't really get together till near the end of season 3. And you get to see them fall in love, not in some sort of like bolt from the blue, but as they get to know each other, you see the more they know each other, the more they fall in love with each other. And that relationship is like so beautifully presented on the show. And God, in that finale, when they depart, I still can't watch that without becoming a blubbering mess.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite presentations of like love in both a romantic and in sort of a way that takes over your entire being in all of fiction.
And they didn't telegraph it. It wasn't clear that these two were supposed to end up together when they first appeared. It was shockingly, it was, as you said, it was a progression, which never happens.
No, it was really masterfully done by Joe Straczynski and the writers on that. And I remember a story Peter David told at a con once where, eventually Sheridan and Delenn have a son, and that apparently that grew out of a throwaway line he had written into a script when Delenn first went into the chrysalis and became half human and made a crack about like experiencing some weird cramps, and taking that to its logical conclusion, it was like, oh, she can become pregnant with human children now.
Mm-hmm.
So, my gosh, that's a good first round. And
Joe.
except
Joe.
for Lola. Ha! I got
Joe.
you, GM. Almost.
Is it my turn?
Yep.
It is your turn, Lola.
All right. So, the best representation of love I've seen on screen, at least recently, is from Legends of Tomorrow.
Yes.
Now, I know not everyone watches that. Elizabeth, it sounds like you do. And
Best
that
show
makes
ever. You should watch
it's the
it.
best show ever. I love it. Hopefully, it comes back soon.
I know.
Sarah and Ava.
Yes, that's my third choice.
They are so wonderful. They truly love each other, no matter what they go through. I don't want to be too spoilery. I mean, it's in like season 7 or something, but
Next year, season 7. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So poor Ava has found out that she's a clone. She was turned into a doll. They've had so much happen, but they support each other and they love each other. And Sarah absolutely loves her, totally devoted. And they've had so many fun times together. We've seen episodes where they've gone back into the past. They've been like type speakeasy, from the 40s or whatever.
That was a good one. Yeah.
That was a
Ava's
good
singing.
one.
Ava's singing.
Ava's singing was so awesome because it was That Girl Is Poison, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Such a great song. And it's like 1940s and she's trashed. And I actually love the way they presented her because she's me. When I'm doing karaoke, I think I sound so hot and fierce and fine and everything. And then it turns out I was just really a slovenly mess. And that was Ava. That was 100% Ava. But Sarah is so kind and loves her so much that she wants to save her from that. She doesn't tell her that she sounded like a slovenly mess. She just pulls her away, and it's like, we just kind of need to sit down for a little bit. She doesn't want her girlfriend, to be embarrassed or anything. So she is so loving toward Ava. They are so loving. And it sounds like Elizabeth and Joe, you know what I'm talking about. And I love that.
Yes. They're amazing. They were my number 3 choice.
Yeah, they are
awesome.
They are awesome. They are just perfect together, and it's everything we would want to aspire to in a couple. And they're solid. I love that the CW lets Legends of Tomorrow do this, because most shows want drama and want couples fighting and at odds with each other, but they let Ava and Sarah be solid. And that's important because they're one of the few LGBT representations on the CW. So it would really suck if they had them at odds with each other. But it's also nice to see, just from a humanistic perspective, that a couple can have each other's back and can be perfect together. And I just love them.
Round 2, Deanna.
So I'm going to dip a bit into comics right now with a couple that's completely on brand for me, and that is the Black Canary and Green Arrow, the great on-again, off-again love story of DC Comics that has been going on now since 60s, 70s. Yeah. So, 60s, yeah, 60s, I believe, is the first sort of hint or instance that it started to happen. So we have Dinah Lance as the Black Canary and Oliver Queen as the Green Arrow. And they were the sort of one of the first couples, if not the first couple, to officially ditch the comics code and start knocking boots for a major comics publisher. And it was very clear in the comics, if you've read them, they were knocking boots. And that has continued. And they break up and they're not good for each other. And they've both admitted that on multiple occasions. But they break up and they get back together, and they break up and they get back together. And I know that in the live action,
they come back to life.
Exactly. They both have died multiple times and been brought back. I know that in the live action version, the fans really, really wanted Olicity to happen, and so it happened. And the writers, unfortunately, didn't know what to do with Laurel without her being Ollie's girlfriend. And that's always been a problem with that relationship, is especially with Dinah, is if she's only written as Ollie's girlfriend, she ceases to have purpose. But in the stories where she's not just written as his girlfriend, where she's written as the leader of the Justice League and the competent one out of the relationship, because she is, Ollie's the hothead, she's the calm one. It's actually a really interesting relationship, and it was a really sort of interesting dynamic that started in the 60s and then evolves through the 70s and keeps going. They've even finally got married at one point, and then are now divorced again. So I'm going to say Black Canary and Green Arrow, because that is the one I have shipped since I was 6 years old. So, yeah.
So let's see. Alphabetically again. Next up, Elizabeth.
Okay. I'm about to upset the apple cart a little bit here and get a little bit controversial. And somewhere on the Brit track, an alarm is going off because I'm about to steal from their programming. But
it's quarantine panel. We don't care about tracks.
My second choice is Mr. and Mrs. Pond, aka Amy Pond and Rory Williams. I absolutely adore them. I love them because Amy is a very forceful personality, to say the least. And Rory is, again, in what we would consider a feminine role. He's in a nursing profession, what many people unfortunately consider a woman's profession. But he loves it, and Amy is Amy. She's herself, and they don't ask each other to change. They really don't. And they're willing to throw themselves off a building for each other. If you're watching that moment when they say together or not at all, and you're not at least a little bit emotional, I'm wondering about the state of your soul, because it's amazing. And becoming somewhat incoherent about them. But I will defend this to the death, because I do think they are perfect together, because all they need in this world is each other. It doesn't matter where they are, but they are each other's home. And to me, that's romantic. Some may see it as codependent. I've heard that before. But to me, it's romantic. So Amy and Rory, plus Rory Williams making all men look bad since 2080.
Mm-hmm. Where is my wife?
Nice.
Yes, that's when he got his moment. That moment is so impressive. Plus, I just love Arthur. I just love Arthur Darvill so much.
Yeah.
I do not love a partner who's gonna spend millennia just looking after you.
Yep, like I said, making all other men look bad for 2,000 years.
Yeah.
So next up, Jeff.
Jeff.
Did I mess up again?
Yes, Joe.
Good night, everybody.
I think I'm just going to get some flashcards. Can you hang on? I've got some over there. Do you need those, Joe? Do you want me to get some flashcards?
We should just put a little number in our corner.
Okay. Gary. Then Jeff. Okay, Gary.
All right, so my next one, I'm going to keep to the slightly comedy, slightly horror aspect of my last pick. They're, I think, one of the best couples to come out of the 90s. I think it's one of the great times we saw a relationship build in movies quickly yet believably, and that is Evie Carnahan and Rick O'Connell from The Mummy.
Ah, nice.
And The Mummy Returns. Because just watching them fall for each other, watching him realize he's falling for her, and that he falls first. And I just love their interplay. They have wonderful banter. I love the moment when she's like, you better think of something fast, because if he turns me into a mummy, you're the first one I'm coming after. They've got such great banter. They've got pure fireworks chemistry. I love the fact, that he also doesn't try to belittle her brains. He completely supports her. And she realizes that, he's a bit of a goofball, but he is a hero and supports him as well. And one of my favorite moments in movies is at the end of The Mummy Returns, when we see the dichotomy in a good relationship and a bad relationship between him and Evie, Rick and Evie, and Imhotep and Anck-su-namun, when Rick and Imhotep have both fallen into the crevice, and Rick yells at her, run, save yourself, and she's like, no, and grabs him and drags him out, and Imhotep looks to Noxamun and says, help me, and she's like, see ya.
Forgot all about that.
Yeah, they're one of my favorite couples of all time, and I could just watch that movie over and over again, partly for just because of the two of them.
Yeah. Now, actually, next, Jeff.
Hey, all right. I'm going to go with one of my all-time favorite movies, which is Willow. And I was like, I feel the perfect age when this movie came out, and I saw it, and I was enchanted with it, and I always have been. So I'm going with Mad Mardigan and Sorsha from Willow.
Awesome.
Again, two people who start off as enemies. And I've always the scene where he accidentally gets sprayed with some kind of, I think, the brownies love potion or something, right? And then he sneaks into her tent and she doesn't know what's. Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm back. I'm good.
Okay.
Anyway, he sneaks into her tent and he's got the love potion, so he falls madly in love with her, and she doesn't know what's going on because she thinks he's there to kill her. I don't know. That's just like a great scene. I've always just loved that scene, and it goes from there. So Mad Mardigan and Sorsha, I think they're awesome.
Well, I love the sort of the follow-up to that scene when they're riding on the horse later on in the movie, and he's like, well, it went away. And she's like, I dwell in darkness without you, and it went away. And she basically beats the crap out of him at that point, right?
Right, because he's done a lot of poetry, right, beforehand, yeah.
Oh, it's so good. I also would like to point out, Sorsha has red hair, Jeff, as does Mara Jade.
Oh. Huh. Oh, shit. The next person on my list has red hair, too. The next girl on my list has red hair, too.
Somebody's got a tie.
I did not even. Okay, one person on my list does not, but I didn't realize that. 3 out of 4 do.
That's hilarious.
I'm just sensing
We're irresistible.
That's awesome. All right, so next up is Kevin.
For my next pick, this is another recent one. I've got from those Marvel movies. I've got Steve Rogers and Peggy Carter. What I like about that relationship is, you see them fall in love in that first Captain America movie, and then you see them get separated. And over the course of, both Agent Carter and various Captain America and Avengers films, you see them move on without the other while honoring the memory of the person after they experience this insurmountable separation. And a lot of people have to go through that, and it's nice seeing that represented, and then we get the happy ending anyway. So it's it is. I was really when I saw Endgame, I was surprised by how sort of touched I was by that final scene with Steve and Peggy.
I never expected that. Usually you don't get. Because the thing with that's right at the very beginning of Captain America's first movie, and you think, oh well, that's just part of his awful Marvel origin where things are terrible for Marvel characters, and that's it. But it turns out, boom, things turned out okay, and good stuff. And plus, Peggy Carter got her own series, for goodness sake.
My kingdom for a 3rd season.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. And I actually have a few friends, one of whom is Bethany. Hey, Bethany, who actually was not very thrilled with that end sequence because they seriously fell for the relationship between Peggy and.
You know what? I did too. Sousa. I was screaming, but what about Sousa? Now, the ending still was beautiful, and I also find the scene in Endgame where Steve. They're in the 50s or 60s, and Steve is 60s, sorry. And Steve is on the other side of the glass window from Peggy. And just the heartache and the pain and you're like, he could literally just reach, he could actually reach through the glass. He's that powerful. And get to her, but he can't because he's Steve and he's got a mission to finish first. And it's just, wah.
Yeah.
But then
See,
after
that's
that,
what the third season needs to be, is solving that triangle.
Well, and also solving the timeline issue, because that's a whole other panel. But Steve would not let Bucky rot in Russia. So,
they broke the space-time continuum. It's the Marvel timeline is bonkers now. And congratulations!
I just want my Jarvis back.
Yeah,
I
just want my Jarvis back.
I love Jarvis.
Yeah, you got him for like 30 seconds in Endgame, so that's something. It's very little something. So next up, Lola.
Well, go ahead and say, before I say my thing, with Sousa, I loved Sousa too. Now, I stopped watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. like 5,000 million years ago, but apparently he went there. And I don't know what happened or how he got there. So I don't know if there's any... Yeah, I don't know if there's any...
Jeremy.
Yeah, Jeremy Bearimy, yes.
Yeah, too much time travel, too much whooshy. So anyway, so my second choice, now this is, okay, so I tried to skew a little bit toward the predefined notions. This is classic. It's not sci-fi, but it is classic. Kevin and Winnie from the Wonder Years.
Yeah.
I hearted them. Now, full disclosure, I think I'm older than they are. So when this show came out, I was probably older than they were, but I was like, they're so cute. Oh my God, I heart them so much and I love them so much. And they were so sweet together. Now, they didn't end up together in like the canon of the TV for a 30-year-old show, spoilers, but they didn't end up in the canon. But it didn't change how sweet they were as, kids. That sounds kind of gross. Valentine's Day. That sounds kind of gross. Like, ooh, smoochy, love. But, they were sweet together. And then they kind of grew up together and it felt like they had something special and something real. It doesn't matter what happened later. High school is forever. And it was just really sweet what they had.
I'm glad that is not true, Lola. Let's continue.
Sorry.
Sure. All right. This is how far we've gotten. Our friend Sherman is quoting Rod Stewart, everybody.
That's right. Some hearts.
All right, Joe, I think Jess is back.
Age. Oh, good, Jess. I don't see
Joe,
her.
you can add Jessa back in.
All right.
Okay,
Come on, Joe.
Working on it.
Add her. We want Jessa back.
There
Jessa.
she is, for goodness sake. And
hey, Jessa!
Just in time for her round.
Yes, more or less.
What did I missed? I don't even. Well, hopefully then we're not going to repeat.
We'll pretend that it hasn't been said. If you
Right.
No problem. Got it.
All right then. So many to choose from. You know what? Since we've had some other more recent, I'm gonna go recent as well. I'm gonna choose Michonne and Rick Grimes, The Walking Dead.
Okay.
Both get to be strong in their own respective ways, and it's difficult to get two leaders to really work together, but to somehow make it work. And it really just develops from two strangers on the road to best of friends to confidants to now lovers. Now just constantly looking out for one another.
Well, you have to. There's zombies. There's
Well, I'm sorry, Gary. I might not watch out for you. Except know your general location.
He's kind of slow. I would probably leave him.
He's already admitted that he's not really going to make a go survival. So
I am not good post-apocalypse material. I've decided that if the zombie apocalypse happens, I'm getting a football helmet so they can't destroy my zombie brain. And I'm wearing a vest covered with fish hooks so that once I grab them, they can't get away from me.
Sure.
And full
as long as you
disclosure,
distract for me, so I can get away. That's all that really matters.
yeah.
I'm already missing a piece of my brain. They don't want it.
You don't have to be faster than the zombies. You just have to be faster than Gary.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I'm not that fast. I got a bad knee.
He'll hold them off for a bit. I just need a minute.
And they don't want my brain. It's not a full meal anymore. There's a piece missing.
Jeez Louise. All right.
Hey,
and,
how do I handle that thing here?
So I think we're at time for our favorite almost couples.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I missed.
Wait, is that what we're doing?
I have another
I
not real
missed that
couple,
was the
but
thing.
okay.
I thought I
Wait
missed
a
that
minute.
was the thing. I'm sorry.
Well, if you don't have an almost, then your third pick can be a third pick.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
All
right.
It's not like
Almost
we have any
couple.
sort of rigid rules on this.
No, we don't really do rules. But let's see. Yeah, let's go to.
Ooh, I got one.
Oh, good. And so I think Lola went. So Deanna, you're up for your
Yep.
first.
Good job,
Almost.
Joe. I'm proud of
Thank
you.
you.
You get a sticker.
Yay!
So I'm going off of media and I'm going into literature. And I'm going into the series The Belgariad. And I am going to go with Dernick and
David
Pulgera.
Eddings?
Yeah.
David Eddings rocks.
Yeah, Dernick and Pulgera. I love that couple. If you want to talk about sort of the long, slow burn of that couple, where Dernick loved her for the entire series, and it's only at the end that the two of them get to have their happily ever after. But it's interesting how he plays it out, because Pulgera is very powerful and she's very proud and she's very strong. And she thinks she has to humble herself to marry this poor Sendarian farmer because she has to be ordinary to be his equal, only to find out that he is actually, because of his life thing, is now as equal, not necessarily equally as powerful as she is, but has those kind of sorcerer powers as well. And she can be as powerful as she used to be. And it's such a lovely scene where, she had to, basically the lesson was she had to accept him for who he was. And it's still a lovely scene. And he's such a steady presence in that book. Like, if you want to talk about dream man, for me, it's Dernick. It's that quiet, steady man who isn't threatened by a strong woman, and in fact is attracted to strong women. Sign me up. In fact, I think I did, but we're not doing my relationship on this podcast, so there you go. So
That's next week.
That's next week.
Yeah, Necrodius, you're correct. That is exactly the zombie I'm going to be.
That's a deep cut. I appreciate that. So let's see. Elizabeth.
Quick question first, Deanna, if that's okay. What's the first book? Where do I start with that? Because that sounds like tailor-made for me.
Pawn of the Prophecy. Now,
okay.
realistically, they are now issued because Eddings originally saw them as 2 books or 3 books.
Okay.
And the publisher said, no, 5. And so if you read them, you can kind of see they're actually coming out in the big omnibuses. So you can buy Belgariad Omnibus 1 and 2.
There you go.
They're excellent books.
Tailor-made for me.
If they came out nowadays, they would be classified as YA just based on the themes in them, because they're not, that's not where fantasy is right now for adult fantasy, but it's still a classic and it's still really good. And he's very good at drawing certain characters.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
One of my all-time favorite fantasy series. Great choice.
And it had
Just
the
like that for a
maps and
second.
everything. You could see the maps and I love that.
It's a great series.
Thank you. Sorry to sidetrack for a second. I just had to know.
Hollywood, can we do a decent adaptation of this, please? Because I think
No
it's
such
time.
thing.
No, they won't. They'll mess it
You're
up.
asking too much.
All right, so I'm going to go with a third choice. I'm going to go with my third choice, which I know at least Joe knows who they are, so this is good. I seem to have a type myself. We were talking about his thing for redheads. I seem to have a thing for strong women and the intelligent, geeky, out-of-control men who love them, because my third choice is Eve Baird and Flynn Carson from The Librarians.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Heck yeah.
Yes, because the minute they meet, again, it's all about chemistry for me, because Rebecca Romaine and Noah Wiley, the minute you meet, you're like, okay, there's something there. They click. But the main reason I like them is because they balance each other out. Flynn's off the wall. That's the way he's meant to be. I know a lot of types like him, and trust me, he's perfect. So he's off the wall, and half the time he's in his head and can't quite articulate what else is going on. And Eve's the one to be there going, are you serious with me right now? You know, she's his sensible, practical side that he doesn't have. And in return, you know, Eve is former military. You know, she's what she is. She's very by the book. She's very practical, but he brings out the fun side in her. Yes, they go through a lot of angst, but again, that's required in these kind of series. You know, you want to move the drama along. And some people can only think of drama as couples suffering. But in the end, they get their happy ending. And of course, spoilers, they get to tether the library. And I'm quite happy to think of them living for eternity, you know, running the library. But Eve being Eve, I'm pretty sure she's going to make some long-term investments.
Sure.
That's so. Glenn and Eve, love them.
It's a great series.
Yes.
Librarians is an excellent series, and I followed the movies at first, but the addition of the team for the series was just I didn't know that it needed that.
Well,
and then I didn't think that I wasn't sure, and they didn't really give out how often Noah Wyle was going to be a part of the series,
right?
Because he was busy doing his other thing. But then once Falling Skies finished, now Noah Wile's all over the show, and it still worked. I was afraid that they were immediately going to break them up and whack one of them, but they didn't. Librarians, top notch, highly recommended.
And I'm sorry, but I'll also say the actors are still doing stuff. Noah Wyle, they're going to redo the Leverage, and Noah Wile's going to be in it. Christian Kane's going to be back in it. Yep. And Lindsay Booth has been doing Hallmark movies, which I saw
her last Christmas.
Yeah,
I was like, it's Cassandra.
I know. I'm so happy to see her. I'm one of the few. I like Hallmark movies. I know they're cheesy and ridiculous, and
You're not one of the few.
Okay.
They all shoot around me because
we
apparently get the most consistent amount of snow in the Ottawa Valley. So they all shoot in like Almont outside of Ottawa.
Well, you might see a lot of
what I'm looking
sci-fi
for, what I
stars.
really want, Deanna, is in Christmas movies, I want you to just be wandering around in the background.
going, you barely know him. You cannot get married.
I'm serious. A lot of our favorite sci-fi stars are in Hallmark movies. For instance,
because they pay.
Canada, because it's Canada. But like the guy from oh shoot, I'm just forgetting his name.
Okay, let's keep moving.
All right, let's move on.
All right, so let's see. There was Elizabeth, and thank you, Jeff. So helpful. We should have had you on months ago. Jerry.
All right. So I'm just going to quickly throw out my almost, because I have to mention them because it's one of my favorite tragics, is Ivanova and Marcus in Babylon 5, that they don't get together.
Too soon, Gary.
Oh, it hurts. It hurts so good. But my third pick, I'm going to go with Deanna reminded me of them by talking about the expected Green Arrow and Black Canary. So I have to say one of my absolute favorite couples, just because they're magic, is The Question and the Huntress from
from the animated series.
From the animated series.
That's amazing. I love them.
I just love the way she loves him. He's oblivious, and then he realizes he loves her, but he's still a conspiracy nut. They have just such great chemistry. Jeffrey Combs is amazing, and one of my all-time favorite scenes that I can't believe they got away with in an animated show is they're on the phone while he's investigating something, and she goes, "So, what are you wearing?" He goes, "Trench coat." Pants. You can see her get the this is not what and he goes, "Purple socks."
So great.
And the vaguely familiar. A great scene at the end of the episode where they finally connect.
Yes.
She kisses him, and then they pan to Canary, who goes, "Ew." It's so good. It's just like. Oh.
I love in that scene when they're walking away. He says something. She's like, "You ask too many questions."
Nice.
So good.
They Justice League, the Justice League cartoon, a lot of times did characters better than source material.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, way better.
That's my preferred DC universe.
The DC-verse,
it really is.
Yep.
Totally with you.
With you.
Yeah. Yep. And that's a whole other panel, which we will invite you back to. We have not done that yet. Let's see. So now, Jeff, thank you.
All right, I did have another redheaded pick, but since we're going almost romance, I just thought of one as you guys were talking. I'm going to go to the Flash TV series, and I'm going with Barry Allen and Patty Spivot, which was season 2, I believe.
Yeah.
Now, I know many people love Barry and Iris, and that's awesome, but I never thought they made any sense. I thought Patty and Barry were perfect. They were both geeky. They were into the same stuff. They had such great chemistry. There were so many fun scenes in the brief time they had together in season 2. I could not think of a more perfect couple. Plus, she did not grow up as his sister, which is a big plus in relationships. So it's not gross. So anyway, and I knew that was never going to happen, and we're never going to see her again. But I still always wanted Barry and Patty Spivot. And my other redhead is Kim Possible and Unstoppable. There we go.
Okay, so that was my next question.
I wanted Barry and Felicity because I thought when his
that made more sense too.
In Arrow, it made so much more sense for both characters.
Felicity makes no sense either. Yes.
Yeah, no.
When Barry Allen debuted on Arrow, I did not stop screaming. I was just in full geek explosion for like 2 weeks. I don't know, but it was like, that's Barry Allen. And then it was months before he became the Flash too.
Well,
it was crazy.
To be fair, he's more Wally West. They call him Barry Allen, but he's more
Yeah.
Wally West. Yeah. I stick to that.
I hear Sean Rosato in the distance.
Sean and I agree on that, actually.
I'm just saying, anytime we mention the Flash, I can hear Sean Rosato in the distance.
So let's see, Jeff. Now Jessa.
All right.
Are there any people raised as siblings that you think should be?
You know, it's funny.
That's the next question.
Running list of those couples, Andy.
Famous incest on the next American Sci-Fi Classic.
Ooh.
You know, again, I'm gonna go with a fairly new one, also stretching back into a little bit fantastical. Maybe an almost couple, kind of short-lived couple. I'm going with Quentin and Elliot from The Magician.
Come on.
I mean, way to break your heart. You've lived 50 years in the span of, a few months. And it is the most deep, meaningful relationship that, again, would never expect to happen. But I guess what happens when you have no other option? But it is so beautiful, and it is so well done. I mean, The Magicians really just nailed it. And you get to go the whole course of an entire lifetime with someone. And then the aftermath of what happens when you come back to life and you have to resume business as usual in your regular relationships and everything that you thought you wanted, but you still have that nagging thing in the background. But I had a lifetime with you, and now your partner doesn't even remember that. It's just heartbreaking, and it's beautiful. But if anyone has not watched The Magician,
come on.
I resisted for a very long time and then binged it because once you start, it's just magic.
And Kevin.
I'm going to go with an almost. This was originally my first pick, but then I saw Gary posted the rules and I was like, let me rejigger this. Because it was never fully stated that they were a couple, but I also feel like the subtext was so thick, like never before was the line between subtext and text like blurrier than it was with Xena and Gabrielle.
Oh,
I was going to mention them too. That's a great choice.
Yeah.
They were clearly the most important people in each other's lives. They would constantly kind of reference the fact that maybe they were together and then not go all the way. I think it was just because it was the 90s and the show didn't feel comfortable doing that, which is unfortunate because I think if they were to reboot the show today, they would absolutely go that way. And the chemistry between Lucy Lawless and Renee O'Connor was off the charts as well. And it was very easy to watch that show and imagine that was the relationship going on.
Yeah. I feel like I wanna now binge watch it and go back from the start and see the stuff they put in that they weren't allowed to talk about or they chose not to talk about that was there the whole time. I love it.
They died for each other multiple times.
The ultimate supportive relationship.
They took
They
hot
both
tub baths together.
constantly tried to
You know,
make each other better. Oh,
medieval times were not in medieval times it was tough to get clean, man. You okay. So Lola.
Well, I spent this entire time trying to find who I was talking about before. It was Niall Matter from Primeval and Eureka. He's been in a bunch of Hallmark movies. Anyways,
wow.
now that I cleared that up, I love him. He's great. Okay, my final choice, and this is one that's controversial. You'll exactly know who I'm talking about. It could fill 5,000 hours worth of screen time for us to talk about, but Mulder and Scully.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, they're the original ship.
Yeah.
favorite, most frustrating couple, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm being good.
And everyone has their own ideas. Some people think they shouldn't have gone together at all. They think they ruined the show. I was always a shipper, and that is the first time that I think the phrase ship came around because
Yeah.
people were talking about relationships. And this was actually when I first started getting into online stuff because
Me too.
Fox had their own message board. It was like Delphi or something. And I used to be on that little message board. And so I was part of the X-Files, fandom on their message board. And back then I thought that was the internet. I didn't know there was other stuff out there. I was just on the little message board and I was all about it. I was all about it. And I love the idea of them being together because they had such great chemistry and they respected each other. Even though they came from totally different places, they worked well and they respected each other. Now, the show kind of brought them together and took them apart. A lot of it had to do with David Duchovny left the show, and then Gillian Anderson left the show. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. And then when the show came back, they had been together, then they weren't together. It was kind of a mess. But that's just the logistics of a show that's been around for over 20 years. But as characters, I love them together. And even if they aren't boyfriend, girlfriend, married, or whatever, they work well with each other.
Yeah. There was tons of good stuff with Mulder and Scully, and then there was a whole lot of not great stuff with Mulder and Scully. But let's go around let's do like a
speed round.
Yeah, I'll do like a speed round, and both current and classic. I have one, and that is WandaVision, which is happening right now.
Yes.
So good.
So
And
good.
it also it stretches back to the 70s in the Avengers comics, which I read when I was a youth, and I'm still reading them now. But I just assumed
You just don't know where to organize them.
that's right. I just assumed they were fine until the 80s when they mind wiped the Vision and Scarlet Witch went crazy, and now we're getting a little bit of that on WandaVision. But I was wigged out. I didn't think. I remember in the comics reading that Quicksilver was mad about Wanda and Vision, and I didn't understand. And then because the idea of a robot and a human being married it wasn't any weirder than anything else in the Avengers at that point.
You're also very aggressive, Joe. I think we need to acknowledge that.
Thank you. I'm pro robot human love.
And Pietro is canonically an
Doing it to
a-hole
my
as well.
outfit.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, Kevin, canonically, the Vision, he's kind of a jerk. He didn't really have emotions until the 80s, and then that.
So he's an Aquarius.
Oh.
But he had the cool speech balloons, so that took care of it. I'll take away my emotions. Give me the speech balloons. That's a fair trade, I think. So let's just go around one more time in a lightning round. Deanna.
From Critical Role, there are 2, if not 3 couples that we need to ship, and that is Percy and Vex. And if you don't know what Critical Role is, please watch the Twitch stream or YouTube stream. And of course, my son wanted me to mention Keyleth and Vax. And and then I think we have to mention the very strange triumvirate that is Scanlan and Pike, along with their brother/son Grog, because Grog.
Google everything.
It's so worth it.
It's much easier. Just
and there'll be an animated show on Amazon sometime, on Prime at some point, maybe this summer, about Vox Machina. So you can, if you don't want to watch the 3-hour playthroughs of D&D games with voice actors, you can watch the animated show on Prime when it comes out.
Nice. Elizabeth.
Can I go a little bit farther afield and bring anime into this? Is that allowed?
Yeah.
Okay.
For my maybe? Okay,
Yeah,
the studio that did Batman the Animated Series did a bizarre, beloved of mine, little anime in the late 90s called The Big O. And if you've never heard of it, it's basically Batman with mecha robots. Okay.
Sure.
Basically, and so the setup is there's an android named R. Dorothy Wainwright, and she's human looking, and she's modeled after her inventor's dead daughter. And Roger Smith is like basically Batman. Okay, he's Batman. He's Bruce Wayne. And he even has a butler named Norman. This is basically Alfred. But the thing is, they spend the whole series contemplating if Dorothy is human or not human, and contemplating whether Roger can love her or not because she's an android.
Yes.
They run around fighting crime too. It's awesome. So if you want something just truly, truly heartbreaking, because the scene where she gets abducted and she tells him goodbye, oh gosh, I'm going to cry about it now again, but that's my choice. Rather than Dorothy, that should have happened.
We've gotten an hour and a minute, and no one has started crying yet. So
I will over that one.
Next up, Gary, your last one.
My last one is I'm going to do lightning round of 3. Kellyanne Yorkie from episode of Black Mirror with San Junipero.
Oh man! Oh, that was one of my favorite.
It's pretty much for me the best episode of Black Mirror. It's one of the ones that doesn't have a life sucks ending, and I want to go to digital 80s heaven. And my other 2 picks are both from The Good Place with Eleanor Shellstrop and Chidi, and the relationship between Jason Mendoza and Janet. Which is my favorite couple.
At the end. I cried at the end of that show.
I did too.
Multiple times.
I love that, and I love that it does show that these 2 will end up together no matter what. It doesn't matter how many times they reboot.
Jeff.
I'll expand then on my Kim Possible and Ron Stoppable. They start off as best friends from elementary school. He's her sidekick on all these amazing spy missions. Then they fall in love. Even better that they actually planned to end that series with the second movie, with them getting together. And then they found out Disney was giving them one more season. So they had to write a full season with them actually being together as a couple, and they made it totally work the whole time, which I thought was awesome. So yes, I love Kim Possible and Ron Stoppable, and she has red hair.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Yeah.
The man has a type.
I love it. I was as soon as that your type developed, I thought, okay, so Cyclops and Phoenix is going to come up at some point, but they are terrible together.
Yeah.
So
when's your red hair panel you're doing?
Yeah, okay, we'll do a redhead panel, and you're on it. And let's see, Jessa.
I'm going to pull 2. First, Wally and Eve, because
yes, I almost said that one
adorable. You need a non-gendered love story. There you go. And they're just adorable. And how do you not love anyone who is obsessed with Hello Dolly? Because it's an amazing show. Also Barbara Streisand in the movie, but anyways. But then my second one is going to go total wild card for you. I am choosing Beverly and Howard the Duck. Because how do you go wrong with a rock and roll singer who falls in love with a talking duck from outer space?
Nice. I love it. In the comics, not so much. The movie, yes. Let's see, Kevin.
Lightning round from movies, comics, television, radio, everything you can think of. Clark Kent and Lois Lane.
Yep.
From the Preacher comic book series from Vertigo, Jesse Custer and Tulip O'Hare. And finally, this is not science fiction or fantasy, but I just want to get a quick shout out to Nick and Nora Charles from the Thin Man movies.
Yes.
The platonic ideal of relationship goals.
I want to be drunk and solve mysteries.
Who among us does not?
Yeah. And last one, Lola.
Okay, so I mentioned Eureka before. Eureka, I'd forgotten about Eureka. I love that dang show. Okay, so the two main people, hold on, I got IMDb up. Watch out, I learned to use the internet. Colin Ferguson's Jack Carter and Sally Richardson Whitfield's Allison Blake. They were perfect. They loved each other and they were best friends. They were stars of the show and they kept everything going.
Guys, thank you. We could clearly do this for another hour or more. Maybe we'll just quarantine panels about love from here on out. That's it. And redheads.
Because,
and redheads. Yeah.
Because the classic track.
That's right. We love you guys. So let's go around the horn and everybody tell everyone where on the interwebs you can be found, starting with Deanna.
So you could go to my professional Twitter and learn about math teaching. But instead, why not come to the Revolution SF Facebook page where I busily post memes every day. Although Gary did post a meme recently. I was very excited.
Hey,
and join us for laughter and silliness.
And let's see, Elizabeth.
I'm an internet ghost. I really don't exist anywhere online except my Facebook. So, but again, I'm trying to change that. And if anyone wants, someone to just come on and run their mouth, I'm always available.
Boom. And let's see. Why is this so hard?
Don't do it alphabetical, Joe. Just
almost made
what
it.
you know.
Thank you. Gary.
You can find me at this location on the Twitters. You can find me here almost every week with that guy, my conspirator over there.
Who doesn't remember who you are or what order you come in.
No idea. Plausible deniability.
We've only had a relationship since like '99. Why would he remember me?
Like, come on.
Think you're in Star Trek.
So
I'm incognito.
For goodness sake. And now, Jeff.
Supergeekedup.com or Super Geeked Up on YouTube is where you can find my Super Geeked Up improv show every Wednesday night, 11 p.m. Eastern. We have a live chat where you guys help us do the games. Also on that same channel, my Super Knocked Up web series, Speaking of Romance, that is a live action series I did about a villain and hero having a baby together. It's two superhero and supervillain.
Awesome. Okay.
It's an action comedy. There's 2 seasons up there on our YouTube channel. You can check that out.
I did not know that was you. That's great, Jeff. Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
And Jessa.
These days I would say just search Good to Be a Geek. You can, but yeah, the website's down right now. But otherwise, you can just search for Sultry McZoe, and you'll find me anywhere. Or basically look for Gary, and I'm sure he's tagged me in something.
Yeah, right there.
Haven't got my invitation yet.
And Kevin,
there's Jessa's. Jessa's got one too. She's got one.
Kevin, go ahead.
GleamingTheTube.net is the website for the podcast. The most recent episode is about Jason Leigh and his work in Mallrats and Mumford. Also, if you go on YouTube and you search for It's a Bash, you can watch a documentary I made about punk rock for PBS, and that's kind of my love letter to punk rock, so it sort of fits into the Valentine's milieu.
Totally awesome. And Lola.
Well, here's the deal. I took my pen name from my great-grandmother, Lola Lariscy, Lariscy. So if you Google that, you'll either find me or a bunch of old dead ladies, because that used to be a popular name, and there are a lot of Larissys in Georgia. It's a whole thing. I don't really like to talk about it. I'm related to a
Are
lot of
you
people.
linked to the old dead ladies in another way that we don't want to talk about, Lola? This is sounding very ominous.
I asked my mother once about my family genealogy, and she got very quiet. It turns out there's a reason there are a lot of Larissys in Georgia. And that's a true story.
Lola,
100%.
this is like one script away from being a Netflix series. You know?
I'll take it. I'll
The
take it.
Lariscy's of Georgia.
If they're named Lariscy, I'm related to them. So, Lola Lariscy.
I love
It
it.
feels supernatural. It feels like there's crime, perhaps.
I feel like there's got to be both
Murders?
supernatural and crime related things. Guys, thank you for spending an hour plus with us tonight. We will be back next week.
Next week we
guys.
have Leviathan, Deep Star 6, and The Abyss. Sci-Fi Gets Wet.
That's
You better talk about
Ooh.
Sequest, even though I'm
Nope.
not
No,
on
it had its own
Sequest!
Sequest had a
I do
whole
thank
panel.
Thank you very, very much for coming and hanging out with us some on the YouTubes. Well, thank you, Jeff, for your debut, even though
Oh, thanks for having me here.
I'm here most of the time. But thank you, Jeff, for coming on board, and thank you, everybody else, for coming back. We love doing this every single week at the American Sci-Fi Classics Track. We will see you here next week. Hopefully, somewhat soon, we will see you in person. And in the meantime, everybody stay safe, have fun. We will see you very, very soon. But join us next week when Gary will say,
God
Hidden
damn it.
Depths.
Okay, good.
thank you guys very, very
Bye.
much.
That's where I put my pants.
Stop it!